Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at Black Hat USA. Joining us now is Chris Cleveland, founder of PIXM. Chris, thanks for joining us on the news desk.
Terry, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
We are talking about stopping targeted phishing attacks. How is it that is in 2022, somehow we are still talking about phishing? I mean, this feels kind of incongruous to me. Any thoughts on why we've been so ineffective in dealing with the ongoing threat of phishing?
Over half of the phishing attacks that we detect and stop are coming in through Facebook Messenger, social media, Slack, totally outside of corporate email. And I think part of the problem here is that the industry still associates email security with phishing security. And I think until that paradigm really adapts and evolves to where the attack landscape is, we're going to continue to have a problem.
So sort of like bank robbers rob banks because that's where the money is, the hackers go to the social sites because that's where the users are.
Yeah, people are working on multiple devices. They're doing work in many applications outside of email, so the attackers see a lot of protection at the email gateway, but they don't see any protection through other vectors.
Do you think users have some idea that, oh, because it's social, I'm safe from being hacked or being phished?
100%, particularly because if my Facebook account is popped or my LinkedIn account is popped and somebody sends out messages to all my contacts are seeing messages from me, right? So you have that inherent trust that's built into these social networks. And of course, hackers can achieve pretty large scale that way as well because these social networks are also very big.
So there's obviously more to the equation than just going to the social sites and plying your trade there as a phisher. Talk about some of the techniques that they're using to evade the traditional protections and defenses.
Well, the number one thing, like we just discussed, is that it's attacking people outside of the corporate inbox because that's so heavily fortified. In addition to that, we're seeing a lot of crafty techniques. Folks are using proxy-aware technology to host their websites. That means that if folks access these websites from anywhere outside of a targeted set of IP addresses on laptops or even smartphones, you're going to get redirected to a 404 web page. A lot of the phishing attacks are also hosted on legitimate domains. These might be small business websites that are compromised. They might be on websites that are used for building legitimate web services, so the root domain looks like a legitimate website. There's all kinds of tactics like that we see all the time, and therefore it makes it very hard to detect these phishing attacks using traditional reputation tools, for example.
What sort of activity are you seeing as a result of these phishing? It's like, are people being redirected to their banks to give up their banking credentials? Is it the corporate credential? Like, what's the treasured target, I guess?
It could be all kinds of things. We've recently seen a large uptick in two-factor authentication phishing that's targeting crypto exchange users, for example, because that's where so much of the money is.
Sure.
And once you access somebody's crypto wallet, it's very difficult for that user to regain control, or after especially that crypto asset has been moved to other wallets, it's very, very difficult for that to track. So I'd say that's a recent trend that we've seen quite a lot of, and that it's very, very difficult to protect against.
So PIXM is an advocate of something called computer vision. Talk about what that is and how it stops these targeted attacks.
Sure, so computer vision is software that can see just like people can see. You see software like this in Tesla vehicles where you have light from cameras around a car that's trying to detect lanes, vehicles, pedestrians, and things like that. We're putting that software into the browser so that when any user opens up a phishing page in their browser, no matter where they click on it, computer vision software can determine that a page looks like Bank of America, Microsoft, Coinbase, whatever it happens to be, and if it's not from an authorized source, IP address or domain, we can flag that to the end user in real time. So this is a really important tool because for a long time, phishing protection has really secretly been about blacklisting known bad URLs, but most credentials are harvested in the first hour that it's deployed. So when you're using these kind of AI computer vision-based technologies, you can catch something that's brand new even if it doesn't have any kind of threat intel associated with it.
Okay, I mean, automation is obviously key to close that window sooner. Say more about that.
Well, I think 90% of credentials are harvested in hour number one. There was an IBM study that came out about that. So this is really about putting the protection in a very proactive context so that when a user opens something in their browser, it doesn't matter if there's malware on that page or not. It doesn't matter if there's a phishing kit that was previously used or not. just by creating a web page that looks trustworthy to an end user, if it has certain visual triggers on it that would make somebody trust it. Oh, this has a Coinbase logo on top of a login page. Oh, this looks like a Facebook login page. Based on the actual pixels that the end user is seeing, we can make that determination in real time when it's a fresh attack out the gate.
So it doesn't matter what version of the browser you're using, it doesn't matter if the back-end systems have been patched.
Yep.
The browser has been automated to recognize the threat or the particular issue at hand.
That's correct. And being in the browser is a beautiful thing because all clicks lead to the browser, right? So those clicks can come from LinkedIn, they can come from Facebook Messenger, they can come from Slack, which is really where the modern work environment and the modern attack landscape is.
And presumably this is all browser agnostic. It's not dependent on a vendor.
Correct. We'll work in any major browser today, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, you name it. Maybe Internet Explorer is still on its last legs, but with that caveat, we'll be on just about everything.
All right. Don't click on unfamiliar links from external senders is the message that gets pounded into users with cyber hygiene training. It's an article of faith, practically. Tell me about your view of these internal training efforts that still focus on user choices and decisions.
I think there was a study that showed 25% of users that click before training still click after. So I like to use the metaphor of driving a car. It's a good idea to train and have very rigorous testing before you're given a license, but I think in the same way, the law of large numbers and Murphy's Law are always conspiring against you. So with enough users in an organization and enough work hours and fatigue, you're always going to have people that are still clicking after. So it'll reduce it, but without some kind of last line of defense, AI-based solution, it's very difficult to really solve the problem with training by itself.
All that being said, the security industry has yet to build better users. Small joke, but the idea is that there's always going to be this human element in the equation, right? So how long before the attackers stop using browsers and move on to something else? I mean, what happens then?
I think social engineering is always evolving, and it's always going to be leveraging whatever access points people are using to log in or access the internet. So, today that looks like desktop and mobile, but tomorrow that might be cars, it might be watches, it might be all kinds of things. And this doesn't always just happen through a browser, it also happens over the phone. You have a lot of social engineering that's just by people pretending to be your IT or your own internal security. And they're asking you 10 questions to verify who you are, but really they're stealing your information so they themselves can get access, easier access to your accounts. So we see that all the time.
Any other blips or threats across the landscape, the threat landscape that you can see that those concerned about phishing should be mindful of?
I think if I were to leave with one message, it's that most phishing activity happens outside of corporate email. Our solution detects and stops phishing at point of click in the browser. So we know this from our data, and I think until we see that paradigm shift and we start thinking about social engineering and phishing more holistically, we have a lot more to do to evolve and adapt to where the current attack landscape is.
Very good. So hopefully at Black Hat, 2032, we won't still be talking about the success of phishers to get users to give up credentials.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Chris, just to close us out, is there anything that you've seen so far during the Black Hat conference so far that's surprised you, delighted you, something else?
It's really great to see the comeback, especially after last year and after the pandemic, to see so many people in person. But, so far I'm enjoying myself and having a great time.
All right. Well, here's to all of us renewing our social skills and getting better at in-person events. We appreciate you joining us today on the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry.
We've been talking with Chris Cleveland, founder of PIXM, here at the Dark Reading News Desk.